We will call the meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Who's saying it so fast?
Too fast, Holly.
Holly, you know, I'm like, am I saying the right thing?
It's a teacher in me. We
Thought I was getting
gotta
it
get it done.
All right, so I'm gonna flip back over here. So I'm sorry, I skipped over the call or the roll call. If we could do that.
Cost? Here. Kane? Clemidas?
Present.
Landers?
Here.
Rapp? Here. Beats?
Here.
Schrader?
Yes, here.
Okay, moving on to our approval of our regular meeting agenda. If we could have a motion, please.
Approve our regular meeting agenda, including business. Nope, I'm just kidding.
That's
Just
it.
wanna approve
End
it.
there. We have a second.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Landers?
Yes.
Rapp? Yes. Beats?
Here.
Schrader?
Here. Yes.
Cost?
Yes.
Yeah.
Clemidas?
Yes. Okay, do we have any visitor public comment time? None. So moving on to item 5, this is where we need our motion for consent agenda with all those things listed.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including disposition of minutes for July 2022, payment of bills, district treasurer's report, inquest and activity fund report, computer report, and personnel report.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Clemidas?
Yes.
Landers?
Yes.
Rapp? Yes. Beats?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Cost?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 6, informational items, FOIA requests. None. Boom. Item 6.2, the administrator report.
Yes, so just to update everybody, I know that we had conversation about this earlier. Starting next month, our administrators will start to come to board meetings to present on topics. And so just as a heads up, that will start in September. Also, next week is opening bell, and we're going to start with Teacher Institutes on Wednesday and Thursday. And the way we do things is we all get together for breakfast each day and lunch each day. So if any of those 4 opportunities you are available to come and break bread with the staff, please put it on your calendar. If you can make one or all 4, fantastic. We would love to see any and all of you. And then if there are no questions for me outside of agenda items, our next thing that we have is we have Scott Engstrom from GRP Wegman is here, and he has about 10 or 15 minutes on a variety of exciting things, and he will reintroduce himself since we have some new faces at the table.
What are those times that you usually do?
Yep, so breakfast is at 8 and lunch is at 11:30. And if I'm wrong, Socorro will let me know.
And those are at?
Here,
I believe they're all at Lincoln.
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 Wednesday it's 11:15.
Thank you.
8 and 11:15.
On Wednesday and then Thursday it's 1:30.
Okay. Thank you.
And does anybody need the password for the wireless?
No, I still.
Brenda, do you need the password for the wireless?
Yes.
Shannon, do you need it as well?
I don't think so.
You think you're good?
I think so.
Okay.
Is it the same
You can
thread
just-
as it would be at the district?
My Yahoo
Lincoln?
account, if you can do that.
It might be.
Try it on Lincoln, if it's the same.
I'm okay.
Yeah. Socorro, do you know, oh, sorry. Do you know if there's a way to type, like for me to type notes, like like somewhere when we're on an item, as if I were jotting down notes during that?
There might be, but I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Even leaving it, I don't see an option to like type
Yeah.
inside of here, but I don't know if it's because the meeting's underway, like
Yeah,
we can
right.
do that stuff before.
Okay.
Just curious, trying to figure out what I can do.
I like to teach things like that. That's not old like the bingo.
Oh, okay.
Just to try to-
So Brenda, I texted you the wireless.
Yeah.
So makes,
He's putting it on my, yeah, we're good.
okay, you're good?
All right, go ahead.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did it, yeah, I did that.
It's okay to sit here.
Yeah.
It feels like the right place to be.
It
It's
does.
really good.
We put that there literally just for you.
Just for me tonight? Well, I appreciate it. It's a very comfy chair too, by the way.
That one I did.
Well, for some of you that are new board members, Scott Engstrom, part of the HVAC project and the roofing project that we've been doing this summer with you guys, and then the lighting project that you guys will also be doing when the material gets in. Really the liaison from start to finish for all these projects that we look at. And then we have the construction team that puts everything in and gets everything installed. It's been a fun summer. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to walk through it. The HVAC is up and running in a majority of the building. I said majority of the building because I think everybody on the board is aware that there's a shortage of electrical equipment, which is the breakers and the panels that the breakers go into. And ours that was supposed to show up at the end of July did not show up, and they just didn't mention it. They just kind of sent over a notice of it'll show up at some point in September, without telling our subcontractors, without telling us or anybody else. So our subcontractors, which was Correct Electric, if you guys are familiar with them, and Trico Mechanical, they've done a really good job. What we were able to do is basically create sub-panels, temporary panels, so that we can get the air conditioning up and running, so that you do have it running in a majority of your schools where you've put it in. We do have a few units that we just don't have enough breakers to get up and running, and when the new panels come in, we'll put them in, but I'd say it's probably, 96%?
Yeah, and really, we have maybe 3 spaces, small spaces at Blackstone are really the only spots that won't have AC on the first day, and GRP Wegman, because they've gone above and beyond all summer, is already going to be, they're already in a position to provide portable AC for those areas. And so when it comes to actual functionality and cooling on day one, we'll literally be at 100%.
Have we tried, I'm sure we've tried everything, even with those included, to make sure something with cooling doesn't happen.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Have we tried, even with the portables in and everything running, that the breaker doesn't blow somewhere?
Yep, we'll be able to put them in rooms that they can handle. Yeah, I know. No, it's a
There
good
goes that day,
question.
it's really hot, and we plug it in and.
Yeah, no, they'll
It
be
was
able
one
to
too
be-
many.
Yeah, it happens at my house all the time.
Yeah, no, and that's what they've been working through, because even when they're creating their temporary panels, is making sure that everything is in line. And even when we disconnect those and reconnect those, we'll be doing those either on a second shift or on a Saturday when the equipment does show up. It's been a crazy summer all over, but luckily, Correct Electric and Trico has really done a really good job. Subcontractors that we like to partner with, especially being local, to make sure that you guys are up and running. So if you guys know anybody that works there, they definitely have really stepped up as far as working with us and working through everything.
I really can't say enough about the work that they've done this summer. I was just telling Teresa, with the employment shortage and with the materials shortage, so many school districts that have tried to have significant summer projects are not meeting their deadlines. I've got a nephew in Central Illinois that they've already said that he's gonna have his first month remote because their high school's not done, they can't open it. I know another district that the entire elementary building, which is a K-5, they're looking at October 1st to having the HVAC up and running. So cannot say enough about not only GRP Wegman, but also their subcontractors.
We actually have one of the people working on one of the buildings, actually is staying at a campground like every day.
I'm sorry, what was that?
One of the employee, or one of the workers that's working on the project is actually staying at the campground that I work at.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
perfect. So it's been a challenging summer just because it's a challenge everywhere out there, but I think hopefully you guys get a chance to walk around and start to see it. And above and beyond that, you guys have done some stuff with painting, especially over here, that it just really pops, and the buildings look good. We just walked all of them today, and I know they're still doing some final cleaning and everything, but your buildings look really good, and more importantly, when you walk in, you're not like sweating. You can tell there's a temperature difference when you walk in. So then the other thing I was hoping to talk to you a little bit about is safety and security, which I think is something that you guys have been very interested in. And so we've done just a preliminary walkthrough to see what kind of safety and security items we've seen that most districts have that maybe you guys could be thinking about for the future.
Thank you, sir.
So really what this is coming through and looking at your buildings and seeing maybe where there are some items that maybe you guys could be addressing, where a lot of districts have been addressing things like this. We've done this for quite a few districts, and the whole list is here, so I'll just kind of hit the key points at the top. The first being controlled access, which is one of the bigger things, is somewhere to force people to have to check in. You're not able to do that at all your buildings at this point. You get buzzed in, and you do have access to the general building without having to actually see somebody and do something. So something that a lot of districts are having us do is create secure entrances. Whether it be by adding another set of doors that force people into an office area, or creating a vestibule outside. We did this just a neighbor down the street, Leland. We did this 2 years ago for them. We took actually a storage room, cut a wall in, and they had to come in that way. For guests and stuff, they still use the main entrance for student time, but guests that come in throughout the day have to go there and check in, and which means they go through a controlled vestibule, and then as part of that, they have some sort of check-in stuff with their ID. Raptor is one that we mentioned in here, but there's different companies that do that, where you give them your ID, you're able to do a quick scan of that person, and make sure that you allow them into your building. More importantly, it's just human contact versus looking at a camera is a big thing that we see, is people can make a judgment call from that point, or people coming in and seeing a student or something to that extent is what we see, besides the catastrophic situations. But maybe there's a custody situation where the kid happens to be there, and by not having that controlled access, that's where we see schools have some issues as well. The other one is replacing interior and exterior doors. You do have doors throughout the district here that maybe don't close completely, whether they're interior or exterior, just because of the age. You're not able to lock them, so when you do think about a lockdown situation, you've got a door that's sticking open and maybe somebody didn't pull it, or if you have an exterior door that is sticking open, thinking about replacing those kind of doors. I mean, you do have some original doors throughout the district that, even walking today, that stick or are hard to pull open because of what's going on with age and movement over time. So getting those sort of doors updated with a durable material that opens and closes appropriately with closers on it. Keyless entry is another one, because then you don't see doors propped open. Also with keyless entry, what you do is, if you've given somebody a key with a key card, you can turn that off. So if something does happen, you can turn that off instantaneously. It's not a key that you've handed to somebody that you now have to find a way to retrieve, that even if it says do not copy, sometimes people are able to get copies of them. It's all a key card access, and that's a good way to control. And you can also see who came into your building and who left your building, from just a security aspect of if they were here during random times that just don't make sense. Then we're starting to get into some additional ones, which is create perimeter barriers, which is just ways, if you look around, what are ways that people could come in, maybe it would be with a car or something, if they wanted to do something catastrophic to slow that sort of situation down. Monitoring the building and grounds, which I think you guys do, because I know we had an engineer that walked and she shouldn't have been walking. I told her I was going to call her out on this. But Alyssa, who some of you have met and has done a lot of work, she got here one day and just got excited and started walking the perimeter, and you guys were all over it and said, how can we help you and what are you doing here? So you guys do a lot of that, but it's just being, thinking about that, vigilant, and moving forward with that. Mass communications, which is a big thing, is how you do communicate that. Whether it be through your phone system, intercom systems, looking at that, making sure they're working. I mean, there's a lot of schools that have intercom systems, but maybe they don't work everywhere, and it's not a big deal until you have a situation where it becomes a big deal. So it's testing those and making sure that people can communicate. Some people are doing it with new phone systems, some are doing it with your traditional, PA system. So those are the sort of things that we would suggest and looking at to help secure your building.
So what would, I know you did like a kind of a summary walkthrough, but as you went through, like, what would be the next steps to get kind of more that detailed, like we're looking at this many doors that we would need and.
That's exactly where we would go next, is
Okay.
we would take each building individually and maybe come back to you guys with, okay, to create a secure entrance, this is what it would look like, and
Okay.
this is how the flow would look, and make sure that people are comfortable with that. You guys are comfortable, and, principals are comfortable as far as the in and out flow of a space. Sometimes you're able to do something small that's only on a single door, and you don't mess with the big doors that are the main bus, loading and unloading in the morning. Sometimes you have to create, like over in Mazan, if you guys know where that is, we created a whole nother set of doors because of how theirs was set up. And with each one of your buildings, it's a little bit different. I mean, Lincoln is already set up pretty well for a secure entrance because of the way you have to come in. But on the flip side, Lincoln's also one of them that has more doors on the inside that don't close as well. So it would be taking an inventory of the entire district and what doors should be addressed. Quite honestly, it could be very feasible that it's just a suggestion to replace all the interior doors in the building. All the buildings, except for your newest wings, that are from the 2000s. But that's just because of closers, that maybe necessarily weren't something that was necessary back in the day. Locks that actually line up and lock appropriately. And then deciding what kind of glass you want on those. Some people only like a side piece of glass. Some people still do like a bigger piece of glass, but it's a more impact resistant glass. So that's where we would go as far as the next steps.
So would that be something then you could bring back to us, then maybe we can take a look at it and prioritize and then kind of build like it's probably gonna take several years for us to roll through potentially every single thing on here, but like we could have phase one might be doors and entrances and then kind of roll through there.
Yeah, and the one actually, I don't know how I glazed over it, but is security cameras. Even the security camera system throughout, because that is a deterrent as much as it is, the video there, but it is a deterrent. So yeah, that's exactly what we can do.
Okay.
Here's the items, here's the, approximate cost for these items, and you can help prioritize which ones you guys think are the most important and which ones you can do first.
And so Scott and I were actually having substantive conversation on this today. Because of lead times, like we were talking about, and he was saying that actually doors is something that there's a very long lead time on right now. And so maybe tell me what everybody's thoughts are. Scott and I were kind of thinking to have GRP have something in our hands at the October board meeting. And so that way we can have that lead time. So the last thing we want to do is come to the February board meeting and say we want to install all new doors and then go, oh, there's an 8-month lead time on it, we can't do it this summer.
Could there be such a thing where, based on, because we have 3 totally separate buildings, like, that maybe our priority isn't the same in each building, like,
Yep.
and maybe you guys can make those recommendations to us too, just because I feel like if Lincoln is okay on security entrance, but the other ones are not, and maybe that's more important to us on those buildings, and then Lincoln we could do something else or just even wait. I feel like there's a lot of moving pieces with different buildings, but.
Yeah, and I think there is between the 3 buildings
Yeah.
and what it takes. So, yeah, that's how I think we would want to present that to you is, here's what, controlled access point, quite frankly, would be my number 1.
Right, that's what I was thinking too.
And then you start to go from there, like cameras and how many cameras, because you could spend an absorbent amount of money
We
on
know.
cameras, but is that really, how many cameras do you
Yeah.
need? And so even down to like a camera, like, okay, here's a couple options, this covers every main door,
Yeah.
this covers every main door in every parking lot, like how far do you really want
Yeah.
to go? So I think it would be kind of like this, which it's kind of crazy, there's 1.1, 1.1.1.
Yeah.
I think you could see that, like cameras is 1.1, and then you got, 3 options worth of cameras and how far you want to go. each building might be a little bit different because you have some spaces where somebody could come from another thing, where other ones are in neighborhoods, so you maybe don't worry about that backside, because you constantly have people around anyways that would call. Even, I mean, you guys are already doing the lighting. Lighting is security as well. You know, interior and exterior lighting does make a difference. So you guys are already stepping in that right direction.
Do you have any buildings that you worked on that have had emergency situations that your doors and locks and whatnot have prevented?
Knock on wood, no. Yeah, knock on wood, we haven't had one of those situations. We've luckily been more where we've helped with the situation with custody things. I hear more about that than the catastrophic, which is stuff that we all really fear.
Yeah.
Well, we, and I don't know if you were on the board yet, but we did have a situation with an irate parent actually a couple different times, several years ago, when, parents came and they were meeting with administration here at the school, and they got very upset, and they were able to just turn and walk down the hallway towards the kids, and so they had to call like a lockdown, everybody shut your door or whatever. But I mean, we've had it really here, whereas if they had been in an area where to get away from the main office to the kids, there's some sort of stop point, because that was bad, that was really scary a couple times. And once you have those type of opportunities, those like vestibule things, people that are just coming to drop off a lunch or drop off paper, they don't even have to come in your building, which is just even more security. Because right now we have to let everyone in order to do anything with them, and then assume that they're going to go to the office and not wonder. I think Lincoln's a step ahead, but Lincoln still worries me because they get in that front door. So yeah, there's a room to slow them down, but that next door is not locked, so they just go through the door and
Yeah,
they're there.
and that's where Lincoln might even be a situation where you create the barrier.
Yeah.
Somehow you rearrange furniture, because then there is a stopping point.
Yeah.
And they have to divert, it's not, because you're right, you can come in and you can bolt.
And it's a lot of time, is it kind of just open sometimes too? Or not really?
It's, I would say 50-50, the doors open, the doors
Yeah, 'cause,
close.
I mean, if people.
And sometimes it's just putting a secondary buzzer on it.
Yeah.
You've got the
Right,
first buzzer,
exactly.
and that door is always locked, and it's just, it's changing habits,
Yeah,
which is,
yeah.
it's unfortunate, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've been in a school and I'm standing by a door and you see somebody walk up and your natural instinct is to just
Open it for
push
them.
it for them. Or
Mhm.
quite honestly, when I've been buzzed in at schools and somebody comes up behind me and it's like your natural instinct is to hold the door open for them, and I'm like, I shouldn't. I almost like, because I'm
It's
in
so
this world, I'm
awkward,
like,
right?
can you come to the office with me, even if it's like a student, you know, if it's a high school student, like, can you come with me? I need to
Yeah.
make sure they know you're here.
Same thing when you're walking out, like
Yeah,
you're walking out of any entrance and someone's
Don't
trying to
let
come
someone
in,
in,
but
yeah.
people do it, for
Yeah.
those reasons. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, I'll let you in, but they shouldn't come in that door.
right.
And I don't even know, even just signage from that perspective, because at, beginning and end of the day, especially at Lincoln, you guys have a bunch of doors open. But then at a certain
Well,
time.
at the beginning of the day, our doors are locked.
Oh, they are, okay.
Yeah, they're
Unless
locked.
it's raining or something and they have to go in.
The two back doors are unlocked, but there's a staff member. I'm at one of them, and then there's another staff member who's at the other one, who we just tell the kids, come on, let's go,
Okay.
just alerting them that doors are open.
Okay.
So the doors are not just wide open.
That's
Yeah.
good.
But after school, yes,
Okay.
they are open
Right,
and
which
unmanned.
there's only so
which
much you
is-
can do with after school.
And
Yeah.
Brad, I'm assuming like the administrators and staff that kind of do that stuff in those buildings would maybe be included in some of the conversations with them?
Oh, of
or
course. Oh, of course.
Just
When-
because.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that GRP Wakeman, is really good at. I mean, this is what they do. And so, when we had all of our preliminary HVAC discussions, there were a couple times when, this room was, packed full of everybody. And so,
Awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because they know the flow of the building.
Yeah, I was gonna
and how
say, they
they're
know
already
the
using it.
daily workings and what what your
Yep.
needs
Yeah.
are and. Yeah.
They've been excellent at listening to us
Awesome.
and taking our advice.
Good.
I think backing up even one step, just so that it's in your lens when you're walking around and building these more detailed estimates for us, I think we have a problem primarily, I think, here and more so probably at Lincoln, just because of you're kind of like locked in a city block, but there's not a clear pattern of arrival and dismissal and pickup, and like Lincoln is a disaster because as much as you guys send home flyers, people still park in the crosswalk, double park, kids are walking through cars. We've had kids hit by a car at Lincoln before. Like, it's worst case scenario over there, right? So
Yeah.
I know, like, I work in a school district where during school drop off, there's a few roads that become one way, and like a one-way sign, temporary one-way sign will go up, can't come down, it's one way only for drop off, and then the rest of the day it's a normal road. Like, just thinking about those other ideas that maybe you wouldn't be stuff you would institute, but as you think about, this is where we put the secured vestibule, let's think about where would they be coming from?
Right.
Like, where could they park, where shouldn't they park, all that, because that is a really, really difficult area, because they don't have a drive-through.
Drive-through like
Yeah.
every other school does.
Yeah, yeah, it's locked like all the way around, and that's always bothered me because it's such a huge change from Blackstone, where you pull up as a parent in the drop-off line and your kid gets out and there's a person right there and they go into the fenced-in playground or right into the school. Then you get to Lincoln and it's like, you have to just find somewhere within the vicinity of the school to pull over and drop your kid off, and they have to make their way up there in order before they're really seen as, supervised.
Right,
Which is
turned
a
over to
liability
the
on the
school.
district and difficult for a parent. So I think that would be a big key piece of it, especially at Lincoln, to think about where we would want to put that. And I'm sure Dave has a million ideas on what would make the best sense as to where.
And I know even too, one time I was gonna pick my daughter up, who's normally a bus rider, and they asked me, which door are you gonna pick her up from? I'm like, I don't even know which door is which. I don't know where she's coming out. So I was like, well, you tell me. So,
Yeah.
Well,
there's
and-
not
And a couple other school districts in the area went to their city and asked for a street to be one way. So maybe that's something that during school year that we ask, it's a one-way street, just like there's one-way streets in this town.
Yep.
So that's something that, maybe Fourth Avenue is a one-way, for that block, or,
We would still have to, I think, decide where is student drop off. We know there's bus drop off on the one side. The other side, we're saying it's only parking and you shouldn't drop students off, but everyone still pulls up behind the
Yeah.
parked cars and drops their students off. And then, so you've kind of got the other two
Yeah.
sides. So if that's gonna be our drop offs, then like we almost need to designate and tell people, this is our traffic flow at this school, and this is where we want kids to go, and then we want them to come in this door. Cause right now it's
No,
just-
I agree.
Yeah, it's not prescribed, and they try every year, and every year, it's
I
just
agree.
such a mess.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that's putting it nicely.
I agree, I live it every day.
I feel so
My own
bad for
school
you out there every morning, but it's like, man, you can't send any more letters home. I think at some point you did decide that this is the way it's gonna go.
And that might be some of the stuff that we can talk about with barriers and like
Yeah.
movable barriers, and if the city will work with us, cause I think
I'm
we
sure
can
they
prove our
will.
point, like, this is what we need to see happen to keep a kid from accidentally getting hit,
Yeah.
or
And we've
something
had
like
several
that.
close calls and one that actually resulted in injuries not that many years ago, so.
Okay,
I
so
think we have
I've
that.
got the traffic flow too,
Okay,
cause that's
awesome.
right up to the safety as well, and how we can look at that as a group and come up with how that might work.
That would be great.
Well, I know that GRP Wegman has become a huge partner with us, so I want to make sure that not only that Scott had the time to come in and chat with you a little bit, and he's got one more thing before he rolls out of here, but to make sure that also that everybody had a chance to visit with him a little bit, because we are making a huge commitment, right? We're already in the neighborhood of $4.4 million. But thankfully, the vast majority of that's federal money, but from now on, the vast majority of it will be our money. And so, just to continue to build that relationship. And Amanda's really gonna love this, because Scott's gonna talk about solar for about 90 seconds.
Really quick though, before you move on to that, I just have one other thing. I know when we first met with you, you guys talked a lot about grants and like finding alternate sources for funding. I think there's, at least last time I looked, there was a lot of opportunities in the security realm. Is that something when you bring it to us, maybe like as you identify some that we might be able to?
Yeah, as we identify them, we'll bring them up, and actually Brad probably gets a lot of emails on those, cause there's been times he sent some stuff over to me
Okay.
as well that maybe we haven't heard about.
Okay.
And then we do the digging into it as far as like, okay, yeah, actually, I think there's a good chance you would qualify. I also have a philosophy that throw it in the ring, even if they say.
Even if-
Right.
because
Even if they say
Kinda
you don't
close.
qualify, if you're kinda close, if
Right.
they don't have enough people, you're the first one on the list, and they're like, they're kinda close, send them some money
Okay.
too,
We,
so.
we actually, all I did was sign something. You know, Scott sent me something over the summer. We got a real outside chance at doing this, but we're gonna do all the paperwork for it. We'll put your name in, sign here. Perfect.
Yeah.
I like
Great.
it, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so, that's my belief on grants, cause there's times they have more money than they know what to do
Mhm.
with, so if you don't put your hat in the ring, then you won't get a chance to get it, so I'm always putting our hat in the ring.
Awesome, we really appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so then the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was solar real quick. So, solar has been something I've done a couple different solar projects in schools, probably like 5 or 6 years ago. That was when there was a lot of incentives and grants that helped justify them. And then over the last 5 or 6 years, I think it has been questionable if it was worth looking at. Some districts have done it. I'm not sure the numbers always made sense on them, looking from an outside in. But now it has changed again dramatically for schools. I don't know if you saw Biden just signed some new legislation as well. So he's changing some things as far as how some money would come to you on a public entity as well. And if all of this does come to fruition, solar is definitely something that schools should be looking at again. It's looking good anyways. I was gonna run some numbers for you anyways, but now with this whole Biden thing, it actually, I call it the Biden thing, I guess, the legislative thing. It makes sense to actually look at it because what they're talking about is giving some additional money, like the tax write-offs that you would get if you were a private entity as a public entity, which you guys didn't have access to. They're talking about potentially just writing you guys a check for what that number would be. So it'll just bring the payback down even faster. The way I look at solar is it either makes sense financially or it doesn't. Just something for you guys to start thinking about as I present this is your other thing with solar is it's a 20-year commitment. I mean, the solar panels that you're putting in have warranties of 25 years, a life expectancy of 35 to 40. So if we put in solar, it's something that's here for a long time. We may have quicker paybacks than that, but if it's there, you're gonna wanna leave it up as long as possible. I'm a big proponent of putting them up on roofs. I don't really like to put them on the ground, especially even for you guys who are very landlocked. I grew up in Seneca, we're landlocked at the high school, you can't do much, so the roof is really where I think they should be going. Which means you gotta have some newer roofs, which you already have some, you know, over here, and you're looking at potentially some more and evaluating that. If you've got a roof that's, 10, 12 years old on a 20-year warranty roof, I'm not sure I would be pushing for solar there, and you might have to wait, but the other opportunities that might make some sense. So I'm
With
gonna
the
run some
projects
things
you've
for you.
done, is it typically if you're gonna go for it, you're going like for where you're like covering most of your use, or is it like, well, if we can put in and take off 20% and be able to cover it?
To get your most bang for your buck, when they're all here, you want to do as much
The
as
whole thing,
possible.
okay.
But you're usually shooting, in my personal opinion, you shoot for anywhere from like 90 to 95%, because as a public entity, you can't overproduce, because eventually you could lose your tax exempt status on that, is what I've been told, if you're constantly selling back. And you're not really necessarily selling back, it's a one-to-one trade-off. So if you guys, for example, like right now, no kids are here, so you're not using as much air conditioning. So over the month of July, and the sun was really shining, you created 100 units of energy. I always break it down into units, but 100 units of energy, but your building only used 95. And then you come August and the kids are back and you're running more air conditioning, and you still produced the 100, but you still produced the 100, or maybe 95 versus the other 100, and you had the extra 5, but you used the 100, you're net zero because you produced 5 more than you needed, and now you used 5 more than
So
you
kind
needed.
of rolls.
So do they
or-
average it over a year, or how do they average
Yep,
it?
they reset it once a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so every year it goes back to zero, so there's no incentive to really put it back on the grid because it's not like they're paying you for it.
Right.
And what the craziest thing about all of solar is we can get you to a really good kilowatt rate. Do people in here know what a power purchase agreement is? Power purchase agreement you guys are already doing, so you're buying the power, which means you can go to the open market and buy power. The thing you can't control is the delivery charges. That's the things we always hear about, like ComEd goes and asks for an increase in that, and they have to get approval, and that's the whole thing that finally took Madigan down and that kind of stuff. But they get approval for those distribution charges, and you can't do anything about a distribution charge. It's on all of our bills, it just comes. So with that one-to-one trade-off, is if you put that 105 out there, and then, you know, you've got that 5 credit, you don't pay distribution on that going either way. So distribution basically goes away with solar. So everything you produce, it's behind the meter and it's used here. And it's used here even when you've got that excess, you still get credit for it being produced here and used here eventually at some point till that reset point. So it's pretty interesting.
The other thing that I really like that Scott said is, when it comes down to energy projects, it's really dollars and cents. It's black and white. Will it pay for itself? Will it not? You know, when we did the lights, you know, you do the math. Is this something that's gonna you know, pay for itself and end up saving us money over the long haul? And if those numbers don't work, he's not gonna bring us a project.
Yeah. The last one I ran, just to put it into perspective, over a 20-year period, if you actually like level that out, what the solar cost with the incentives, they were gonna be able to lock in a 0.04 cents kilowatt per hour rate, which is probably about where you guys may be on a power purchase agreement, but your true blended rate, which is that distribution charges, is probably anywhere from 0.09 to 0.10. So they're locking in 0.04 on site, so they're reducing it by 0.6. So you can see how it makes sense, and that was before this new stuff that just got signed this week. And that's just a unique situation for them too. Their roofs are in the line, so we just would have to look on what would make sense. Maybe it's only one school that makes sense because, you know, you've got a roof that still has 8 years left and we're just gonna wait it out, because I wouldn't rip a roof off just to do it if it was still under warranty. But if you've got some that aren't under warranty, I would bring them to you and say, this might be the opportunity, get them done, solar will help pay for it, and then get the solar on.
So like, we're just putting a new roof on 7th and 8th grade wing, and the 5th grade wing will need to be done next summer as well. So we would have, especially at Northbrook, we would have an opportunity to have a fairly substantial project.
And the other thing you have is you just added air conditioning, so you know you're using more electricity, so we'll base it off of our estimates of where your new electrical usage would be. But then
We'll
you'll
have
go.
this year of usage to
Yeah.
kind of.
And we can calculate out, we already
Right.
have what we had, and then we decrease for the lights you're putting in. And that's why you wanna stay in that 90%, because in theory, things will continue to get more efficient when you're thinking a 30-year thing. But so I'll bring that to you too, probably in your September board meeting, just so that you guys can see it and start thinking about it as far as how you might.
So do you guys want us to start putting you as a spot on the agenda?
When is your September board meeting? Because my birthday and anniversary's around that time, so no guarantees I'm at that meeting.
We're always the 3rd Thursday.
What does that mean in September?
September 15th.
Not always.
September
November is opposite.
Yeah, mostly.
If
I
you
don't think
wanna-
I'll be here for that
If you
one.
were gonna bring the security one back.
Nice, honest answer.
I just did
If
that.
you were gonna bring the security one back in October, frankly, it's fine if you bring them together.
Okay.
It's totally
Yes.
fine, don't make an extra check.
Take your birthday and
Just for that.
anniversary off.
You already said, guys.
Yeah,
I'm
15,
out.
I'm out. My wife's just scheduling something for a fun trip over the weekend. It's gonna be a
Good.
long weekend, so I'm out on the 15th.
Good for you.
No problem.
I can definitely get you guys something even just to look over so that you guys can start to digest it, so that come October, it's not a surprise too. And you guys can have some questions, anything like that. All right?
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you.
Really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it.
This is awesome.
Thank you, Scott.
Have a good one.
You too. Okay,
Have a good night.
anything else for you, Brad? Okay, so we did not have any committees or reports. So I'll use this perfect time to remind everyone, in order for us to wrap up our committee of the whole project of our superintendent evaluation, if you haven't yet already done the numerical rating portion, please try to get to that in the next few days if possible, so we can wrap that up. And then I think I sent it in an email, but just to review, I'll take the summary of it, so we have just the average for each one of them. And then any of the narrative, make sure there's nothing like super identifying or anything way out there. Build like kind of a summary document. I'll share that with the board first and give us a few days if anyone has any questions or concerns about it or whatnot. And then once I hear back that we're all comfortable with it, then I can forward it to Brad, give him some time to go through it, and that gives us a chance then if he wants to discuss it or talk through some things related to it, then we can have that at our next meeting during closed session. Does that timeline sound good?
I got mine done today.
That's all right. That's all right. We're good. I haven't done mine yet, so there you go. It's all right. we're 4 in, so we're over halfway. All right, moving on to our substitute pay rate. This is the proposal to move from 105 to 110, which, if I'm remembering correctly, is a little more in line with what our competition pays, since substitutes seem to also be in short demand.
Yep, we're just trying to make sure that that's not an issue of why people won't come here.
Do you have any questions in regards to that adjustment? Okay, if we can have a motion then, please.
I'll make a motion to increase the substitute teacher rate from $105 to $110 per day.
In a second? I'll second. And roll call.
Landers,
Yes.
Rack,
Yes.
Dietz,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Haas, Kumitas.
Yes. Personnel contracts.
I have a question.
Yeah?
Why is the athletic director not part of the stipends under the teacher contract?
Because
I'm just wondering, because every other school district is part of.
So because it, sorry.
And I looked at the old contract.
No, great question. So the answer is, because it's not.
Okay.
I don't know, that's the way it's always
Okay.
been. There have been times where that position has been covered by an administrator, so it's been a part of an administrator's duties.
Okay.
And so because of that, it's never been included in the CBA for negotiation.
Okay.
And so it is an administrative stipend position, not a teacher stipend.
Okay, so my other question regarding that is the athletic director, who is a member of the teaching staff, required or designated to evaluate coaches, considering those are that person's coworkers?
I don't believe.
I'm just wanting to make sure that we're not
Yep.
getting into a.
Now let's right. I mean, let's be transparent. When it comes time to do evaluations, if a principal's going to evaluate a coach, they're going to talk to the AD for feedback, right? I mean, that's part of the process.
I
But
understand, but
I
in
don't-
some districts, the athletic director is evaluating their co-workers. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
Instead of the playing a part,
But
so.
we don't have
In
an
some
official.
districts, the athletic director is part of the admin team,
That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
as a separate, in high school districts especially.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
just,
And so that's
And this isn't, that's not, I mean, evaluation isn't even on.
no, it's not even
On
listed.
their duties on here. We don't have formal
Yeah, 'cause I was
evaluations
like, where did that?
of coaches. 'Cause
no,
a lot
I'm
of our
just making
coaches
sure
aren't
that
even-
we're not
Oh,
getting.
wow.
into-
Well, I'm like certified
is that
staff.
common practice? Cause I didn't
No.
see that.
No, I'm just making sure we're not gonna get into,
The problem with rolling it into there is then the only people eligible to do it would then be, or at least first eligibility would have to be our certified staff. And if it's kind of considered more of as a director admin level position, if we had somebody that was assuming more of that admin role and wasn't gonna be that peer situation, we wouldn't wanna limit ourselves in that.
yeah, just
having
making
that
sure that
person
it's
that
not
way.
going to
So-
become a
No,
issue.
I don't anticipate that being an issue.
So what is different on this contract, like compared to the last one, just the compensation bump?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the last one existed.
Did not.
Okay.
Oh, okay, then. So cool.
You're like.
So-
So we have a contract.
So we're trying to do things better.
Yeah, there we
Right.
go.
You bet.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay then. All right, do we have any questions about this one? And it's only this one, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if we could have a motion to approve this athletic director contract, please.
Motion to approve the athletic director contract.
Second.
Second.
And roll call.
Rack,
Yes.
Dietz,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Haas,
Yes.
Kumitas,
Yes.
Landers.
Yes.
Student staff handbook. Did we have one of these before?
Yes, and so and Sapporo again, jump in if I misspeak, but this is a document that we update every couple of years. I think it's probably been 2 or 3 years since we updated it, and especially with the changes to reflect what we're doing with certified staff with respect to sick days and personal days, and so we wanted to make sure that that got updated, and that's really the substantial change. The rest of it's just kind of, you know, little tweaks to be current.
Are there any questions on this document? Okay, then can we have a motion, please, for approval of this non-certified staff handbook?
I make a motion to approve the non-certified staff handbook.
Second?
Beats,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Goss,
Yes.
Komitas,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Budget.
Yeah, so pretty exciting. I was, I'll be completely honest with you. I was a little bit stunned. So if we look at where we are, and again, this is our draft budget for the upcoming year. We'll continue to make a few minor adjustments to it and have I always do a more formal presentation at the September meeting before the final adoption. But if you start to unpack it, we're gonna overspend, or as they say, be in the red by about $100,000 this year. We're projected to be, that's what we're budgeted to be. And in a year where in the neighborhood of $1.3 million is coming out of local funds. So when you look at, for all of our, sorry, let me finish that sentence. 1.3 million is coming out of local funds for our HVAC and lighting projects. Those aren't customary costs, right? And so if you look at the executive summary and you look at the operation and maintenance fund, our revenues are 2.8 million, our anticipated revenues are 2.8 million, our anticipated expenditures are 4.2. So that $1.4 million building fund deficit is not something that's typical. It's something that's happening because we have these unique projects that we don't normally spend $4 million in the summer, right? And so for us to have this $1.3 million that is coming out of this year's budget to make all this happen, and for us to look like we're gonna have a budget that is next to balanced, that's pretty awesome.
Can you, when you do the budget presentation, I don't know how hard this is within your numbers, would it be possible to see what the numbers minus that project, simply because we don't do something like that every year, like where we would have been?
So
Or I guess because the ESSER money's one time too, start, okay.
So the thing that, and I think I've mentioned this in a report or two, but the thing that makes last year's budget and this year's budget so difficult is the timing of revenues and expenditures. So for instance, we spent, I don't know, pick a number, $300,000 last year that we didn't get reimbursed for. So they're coming in this year's budget, even though the money was spent last year. And so I can certainly on an overview level break that out and kind of
Maybe even
make
just
that-
looking at, not looking at the O and M then, like maybe just since most of our expenses come out of ed fund anyways, just kind of getting a feeling for like, hey, if it wasn't for these random revenues of ESSER that popped in,
Yep.
that we aren't recurring, and same thing with the expenditure not being recurring, kind of our recurring where we're sitting. Cause I'm assuming that this accounts for an increase in EBF, right?
It is. That's not huge for us. It's about $100,000. Maybe 135, something along the lines of that.
Where does this ed fund sit in the, you don't have to answer these questions now, I think it's
Sure.
stuff I'd love to
Yep.
hear in the presentation itself. Like the comparison, especially in the ed fund, given that we just signed a new pretty large increased contract, what those ed fund expenditures looked like, revenue and expenditures looked like previous to that contract, and, cause this is still a positive fund balance in the ed fund.
Yep.
And I think for most people, they wouldn't expect that.
Right, yeah, right.
Given what we kind of thought was the reality from before, so I think that would be good to see that comparison.
And I know we were keeping up with it, but the allotment of all the ESSER funds and where it went, we were at one point talked about putting it on the website.
And it is,
It
yep.
is, okay, I know it changed and I haven't looked at that one. Is it all gone now?
So the majority of the ESSER funds are spent with the exception of finishing up the HVAC. Yep.
We allocated a movement of money, was that from tort? When we did that last exception, where we had to sign that some salaries, portions of salaries could come out based on,
Yeah, so all that does is allows your toward expenditures to go up. So
Okay.
there's not actually a transfer of money.
okay.
So that would allow you to then generate more revenue in order to pay those bills.
But this 578 number in tort
Yes.
is assuming those things that you anticipated would go in through
That is correct.
Okay.
Just, and quite honestly, just a small number of them.
Okay.
So it still could change and,
In subsequent years.
oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Not for this year.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're sitting on quite a bit in our life safety money.
Yep, and so the way that this looks, come the end of the fiscal year, we will actually be over budget in the building fund, which is something that auditors hate. It's on paper, right? The way the school works is the way that it works at your house. There is, in one spot, there's a pile of money, right? And only in the world of accounting is it divided up into funds.
Mine
That's,
doesn't know.
Mine doesn't either.
I didn't say how big it was.
I don't either.
I didn't say how big it
It's
was.
I-
It's
it's
pennies, it's pennies.
Mine's
My stack of
pennies.
pennies, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so the fact that there's this fund accounting, that's really kind of made up.
Right.
And so it's not like we're actually gonna be short money, but, so we will do something, to rectify the fact that the building fund, operation and maintenance will end the year with a deficit fund. So I'll
Is it
fix that.
enough to trigger any requirements from the state? Is
Mm-mm.
okay.
No, so we'll either transfer some money or we'll, take part of it out of a different fund, depending on kind of which mechanisms. are
And I'm
best.
assuming some of the stuff we just heard about as far as safety security stuff potentially we could be tapping into some of that life safety money, right?
Possibly.
Cool. All right. And then will you give us our final actuals when will you kind of have that wrapped up for this past fiscal year? Are those finalized already?
That will also be in at the
September.
September.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Welcome.
We don't have any required. Do we need, you want us to approve
If
this?
I could have an approval of the tentative, that'd be great.
Okay, so could we have a motion for approval of this tentative budget for FY '23?
Motion to approve the financial year 2023 budget as presented.
A second? Okay, all right, seconds, roll call?
Schrader,
Yes.
Cost, Kuminis,
Yes.
Landers, Rapp,
Yes.
Eats.
Yes. Holy Cross Food Agreement. Can you give a summary of that?
Yeah, so, long and short of it is, we kind of heard through the grapevine, that they were, struggling a bit in putting together their food service program. Had a series of conversations with the principal over there, and we were able, one of the things that we tried to do, whether it's with Holy Cross or with the high school or the community at large, is be a good community partner. And so we reached out to them and had a series of meetings. Carrie Del Hotel, our cafeteria manager, who's outstanding. She's technically not Airmark. Arbor, thank you. An Arbor employee, but she's ours, right? She does great work. She's been working with them, and long story short, we're able to put in an arrangement, have Arbor bill us, and then we'll turn around and bill them any additional costs that that we have, we'll do a Holy Cross. And so it's, the whole intent and philosophy behind it is trying to help them out. It's something that's completely cost neutral to us. It's not gonna have a negative impact on anything that we do. And so we're just trying to help out.
Are we, as far as transferring it, I don't know if it matters, but are we sending it over? Are they coming at it, or?
So,
is that what-
so we satellite anyway, so the major food prep, meal prep is done here at Northbrook, and then we transport to two
Okay.
stops anyway. We're just adding a third.
Perfect.
Yep.
Is that kind of what that 10 cents per meal, well, that pretty much covers the transport?
Covers the transport, you know, if there's some additional personnel costs that we have here, there's a possibility that they're gonna ask to have one of our people go over there for a couple hours. That's only if, you know, Carrie says that we can have that, so we might get a little money coming back from them on personnel, and so, it's just gonna be, you know, constant communication, you know, completely transparent and to make sure that, you know.
Can we make sure, pending, of course, we pass this evening, can we work with Holy Cross to do like a press release on the partnership with this? Because I think it's something really cool, and we already partner with them as Price is Gonna Cover. They participate in some of our sports and music programs and other things. So I think it's just one more arm to show that we are trying to, in fact, partner with our community at large, and it's one of our priorities as a board.
Yep.
Awesome.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Okay, could we have a motion, please?
I move to approve the Holy Cross lunch agreement as presented.
And a second?
Second.
Second, roll call?
Kumitas?
Yes.
Landers?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Beats?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Cost?
Our COVID reopening plan.
Yeah, so, so,
Oh, it looks so much better.
I know, it's
So-
so much
It's gonna be
better.
like-
I just hate the words.
you know, we're, again, we're very fortunate. You know, we have, in our organization, we really have some great people. I was just talking about Carrie, our school nurses, Maureen and Laura are another two of them. And so the three of us sat down on Tuesday, and really it was a pretty simple process. It was the CDC and IDPH had just come out with their release. Basically, we copied and pasted quite a bit of it. Got at the high schools, make sure there was nothing conflicting,
And it's a lot of this represents kind of where we were as far as procedure and protocol goes at the end of
Yep.
last year too.
Yep.
The document or whatever from the CDC and the IDPH, it talked a little bit, I thought, about like maybe, post, like return from breaks or, at like large gathering events, like to, I don't know, not necessarily like mitigations, but just to, I don't even remember what the wording was, but it talked about that for schools, so I didn't know if that's something.
What do you mean?
What specifically?
Yeah, I was
I'm
like, I'm
trying
a
to-
little confused at what you're
Yeah, I'm
asking.
trying to remember what it said, but it like specifically listed, for example, prom and for example, after Christmas break and after Thanksgiving break.
You would.
And I don't remember, that's what I'm saying, I don't see anything
I think a
like
lot
that
of their
here,
things
so.
were recommendations.
All of it.
And so, I think as long as we're recommending, and they've already talked about they're offering shield if appropriate, I think those are layers of mitigation, and we're recommending all the things, so I
Okay.
think that was more, I think they talked about offering shield at those, for like
I don't
high-risk
remember what it
groups or-
was specifically, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think all that's covered.
Okay.
I was on it right now just to see if there was anything that I could find really fast while we were talking about it, but I'm not seeing.
A lot of their stuff that hasn't
Oh.
been approved.
It's under
They
the
haven't
screen.
like published all of it yet.
Right. It's under the screening testing section about implementing optional screening testing for high-risk activities at key times of the year before and after large events and returning from breaks. But we planned on offering screening testing anyways, so people would have to opt into it no matter what. So if anything, just, I guess, a few reminders throughout the year if people are
Did we
interested.
do away with, requiring that for athletics?
We never required.
Or was it the other schools that, okay.
High school required, but they're not this year. But I did send Brad, I don't know, did you follow up on that?
Yep.
Okay, do we have tests coming?
So, yeah, actually, it was something that Maureen had already done.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I would say it came out in the siren update from IDPH, but, I got 7 pallets of Binax tests delivered to my door yesterday at work,
Nice.
but pallets don't fit through my door at work.
Oh, so did you get to unload?
So they were all on the sidewalk and we got to carry them all in.
Fun.
Yeah.
That's like a photo op.
Speaking of all those good photo ops.
Yeah, there you go.
Sweating.
Get a press
Right,
release up?
right.
No, it's
Man.
not a fever.
Sorry.
That was a lot. So if you need to borrow any, I know I got a great source for you of another district.
They
that
gave
can
away a
loan them
bunch
out.
at the end of the year too.
I know,
so.
but they were those ones that were annoying with the
I
fluid.
know.
Binax is the card. These are all the card
I
ones.
know.
So yeah, the new ones are much better than the old ones.
Those are the good ones.
They're the good ones. So good. I'm glad we're getting those. So we'll be able to offer rapids on site if a student develops symptoms or if there's like a report of exposure and concern and a parent's talking to the nurse and like
Yep.
we might be able to coordinate that.
Yeah, and so, I don't know if you'll recall, but there was some conversation with Shield last year. They said that we had enough to meet the minimum threshold at the beginning of the year, and then they tried to take it away because they said, no, you're in 3 spots. And so, right now we're in the process of re-engaging with Shield. I know that if we haven't sent out a sign up, we will in the next day or two, just to see how many we have interested. So as long as we meet the Shield threshold numbers, we're gonna offer whatever we can.
They lowered their threshold too. It's 50.
It's 50 now, yep.
Yeah, so.
And did they redefine, is it 50 per collection site or 50 per district?
Yeah, and so that's
what they were
what
wavering
we're
on.
trying to get finalized with Shield, because even if you lower the number to 50, but if they consider us 3, then we're gonna really struggle.
We won't, yeah, we won't get it.
Yep. So we'll do everything we can.
Awesome, but I'm glad we'll have
And-
the rapids in those.
Since there's like some changes or whatever, how does that work then? Like, let's say this year, if there's, a student, like the close contacts and stuff, I know you don't have to, but like, is there a way that a family or a parent could request to, like, know if their son or daughter was exposed, if the school knows of an exposure?
No,
In their
because
class.
contact tracing isn't a thing anymore for schools.
Right, but I
I
mean,
think
like,
if there's an outbreak, then you would, possibly coordinate with LaSalle County, but honestly, I contacted LaSalle County and they said they're giving no recommendations until September 1st, so don't even ask.
And
So-
they've been told by the state, the health departments are no longer doing close contacts and notifications anyways.
So like, I guess you could do a courtesy, but that would be,
Yeah, so the way our plan is that if there is an outbreak, we would notify everybody in that group, whether it's a team or a class or whatever. With respect to like an individual, I would say that would just be a conversation with the school nurse. Just
Like-
call
like a
them
parent
up
could
and
call and
yeah, the
ask
parent can call
for
and
that.
and that's one of the I think we stress that like 4 times in our in our plan. It's concise because we stress call the nurse. If you have symptoms, stay home and call the nurse. That's if we can do those 2 things, we're gonna be great.
yeah, right. That's why you get all those calls, you know?
yeah, they're super nice calls too.
Oh,
Yeah. Everybody's always like,
You're doing such a great job.
and then you wake up.
And the dream is over.
Right, and then you wake
When
up.
somebody does say nice things, you're
I
like,
know.
oh my god, thank you
What do
so
they want?
much.
And
You're
then
like,
What do you
"What's
actually
really like
want?"
excited about it?"
One thing that we may consider, and it might get a little bit to what Sarah's point is. I threw a sentence in the one that I wrote, which mine is 21 pages long, so it's not very concise. But one of the things I did put is that in absence of the district conducting contact tracing, if somebody is a known positive, that they're encouraged to notify individuals they may have had close contact with. So if I'm a positive 7th grader and I know I sit by the same person every day, I may want to be encouraged to tell those people I may have been around that they're close contact because the school's not going to do it. Like that might just be, it's harder at the littler grades,
Yeah.
but they'll know who they sit next to on the bus and who they usually sit next to in class, and not that it's a formal thing, but it's kind of,
The kids know before.
But then it goes back to, you should be watching your kids for symptoms.
oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, then it goes back to like,
It's
Yeah,
allergies.
absolutely.
so like, why do
Yeah.
you need to know if so-and-so was positive, because you're supposed to watch your kid for
Yeah.
symptoms every day.
Yeah,
So
I think it's just that
that's
they
the-
were more, if there's
No, I
if there's a
know.
known exposure and there's an immunocompromised person at home, like, if I knew that somebody's mom was home on chemo and like I knew I was around them, like just the common courtesy of being able to.
Yeah, cause like my
set somebody
husband was
off.
exposed like a couple days ago at Joliet Junior College already by an office partner, and it already went through our house, but like just, you know, it's good to know whatever.
Yeah,
for
so I
him to
think
stay
if
away.
it doesn't, if it's not written in the plan, it can just be when somebody calls to report a positive, as they're having that conversation with them, if the child is of the ability, age and ability to communicate with others, to maybe tell the person they warmed up with at practice, or the person they sit with on the bus, or whatever, just those families communicate with each other, since the school's no longer taking that role anymore. Okay, and then going back to, this is from last year, if there's any significant changes, so we'll publish this plan as it stands for our start of school plan, for the safety plan, and if there's any significant changes anywhere along the way, we know that we need to communicate those out to parents with the summary of changes, not just the updates here. Okay, cool. Any other questions? Metrics will still be posted or not posted?
Every Friday, we'll still post our positives.
Okay. Good.
So it's once a week this year?
Yep, every
Okay.
Friday.
Alright, if there's no other questions, could we have a motion to approve the COVID-19 reentry plan?
I'll make a motion to ratify the COVID-19 reentry plan as presented.
And roll call.
Haas? Camitas?
Yes.
Landers?
Yes.
Rack?
Yes.
Beats?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
ESER 3, we're going to skip over.
I had it on the agenda, in case there was a provision that we had to, have some sort of a formal update in order to continue, to have those federal funds flow, but we haven't changed anything, so that's not needed. So we're good.
Separation agreement, this is the one that was discussed in closed session, previously. You all have a copy of the agreement. If we're gonna discuss anything in detail, it would need to be in closed session. The only thing in open session will be the adoption of the, motion as presented, so. If there's no questions or nothing specific, that we need to discuss, we can have the motion as presented there, please.
You say the name too?
Yeah, yeah.
And tell me I can't say no, but this is
Are you looking at the agreement? Is that what you're just showing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I remember now, thanks.
No problem.
Okay. Could we have a motion then for adoption of the separation agreement as listed there?
Make a motion to move to adopt the separation agreement with Michelle Wilson.
In a second. Seconds, roll call please.
Rack?
Yes.
Beats?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Haas?
Yes.
Camitas?
Yes.
Landers?
Yes.
Discussion items. This is first read on press.
It is, it's first read, and quite honestly, nothing very exciting. There's some updates on, evidently there was a law change with respect to anaphylaxis, which I'm not really sure what that is, but.
I watched the video.
We don't,
Did
you don't want to know what it is.
So proud. I was.
It's one of the GCN trainings.
Yes, one that haven't gotten to yet. But no, seriously, there are some changes with respect to anaphylaxis. And then the rest of it is basically what they call 5-year review. There are some 1,400 policies, and so they go through and make sure that every 5 years one of them gets touched, and so it's just, updates, changes, whatever the, the new law or the new footnote or the new whatever, so, nothing.
For those of you that are
Sure.
new, this took me a little bit, so I'll just take a second to explain what this is. So, in some districts, they attempt to maintain their own policies and have like policy review committees and their own legal team and all those kind of things, but that's very, difficult financially and just the workload of keeping up with things as there's all this new legislation all the time. So what the Illinois Association of School Boards produces is what they call a press, and press comes out with updates 3 times a year?
Yeah, about quarterly.
Okay. With amendments, anything that needs to be changed to policies based on new legislation. Most often, it's changes in the footnotes, which is the court cases and things that they're referencing. Typically, it's that kind of stuff, or sometimes even silly formatting changes, verbiage changes, not typically substantial. What we would do is we get those notifications of changes from press. We'll have the first read through them, and then we'll have the second read, and then we adopt those changes. So we, to this point, I don't believe have any policies that stray away from the press language at this point, which is always the cleanest thing to do, because then we don't have to maintain our own legal review of policies that stray away from it. We're just in line with what press is. We have certainly some of our own APs, our procedures, that APs don't require board approval, so our administrative procedures that back some of the existing policies would be internal, just procedures of the way that we would handle certain things within policies. So, just a quick 1-minute overview there for you, since press is kind of a weird title for it if you don't know what that means. That's the subscription to the policies that we utilize. So you'll always see the red line version of the changes for you to look at them, but it's typically really good sleep material, right? Reviewing the changes in the footnotes.
100%.
Right.
And also, as Holly had mentioned, if anybody has another 5 or 8 minutes after we adjourn, definitely walk down and take a peek in the big gym.
I do have one question, and I think this is covered in our handbook, and I apologize because I don't know it by heart. Our handbook is where we cover dress code, right?
Student dress code?
Yes, is in the student
Correct.
handbook. And there was no substantial changes to that, so it's the same as previous years, correct?
I don't recall any substantial changes to the student handbook on dress code, do you?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
Okay. And that might just be something we look at some point in the future. I know for a lot of districts that it's been a source of potential concern in regards to assigning gender to dress code and
Yes.
limiting and not limiting, like who can have sleeveless, who can, who has to have this covered or that. Where's sleeveless and not, and different things like that, because a lot of the older versions of dress code were gender-based dress codes.
Girls can't wear this and this.
Right, and that's now with the new
In
state.
general, I don't want to see anyone's navel in cute.
We'll make sure we put that in there. But I think it's something we should look at
Yep.
maybe this year for next year, to just be kind of keeping up with things.
Yep.
And not open ourselves to any liability in that world.
Of course.
Anything else for meeting before we adjourn? Cool. Do you want us to let you know if any of us plan on being there for breakfast or lunch on either of those days? You don't need to know, okay. So it's just a surprise.
Plenty of food.
Okay.
And Socorro, do we also know who is and isn't signed up for the November Triple I conference?
Yes, I'm just kidding with Shannon.
Gotcha.
on dates and that's it.
Okay,
Everybody
perfect.
else is signed up that's going.
You
Awesome.
guys, don't forget, you told me you would come on the cruise boat with me.
Ah, invite. I will this year.
You mean with our
You
oldest
should
attorney?
all go, I can't
No,
do
it's
mine.
Said the
That's what I
expectant
was
mother
defining.
on a cruise ship.
I don't know how it's
If
gonna
Shannon's
work
not
out.
going, I'm not going because if you go into labor or something on that boat.
There's so many
Oh, it's
hospitals around.
before,
It's
it's just
fine.
gonna like.
Hey, you got a nurse? I'll just
So-
water taxi.
I
her
don't
over.
know. In December, so, but I'm
That's
hoping.
So it's
very,
like 4
very
weeks
popular right now, that birthing in the environment.
There you go.
Lake Michigan, how.
In the snow in Lake Michigan, it sounds grand.
I don't mean to be, I'm not gonna be, but if you go into labor, I'm gonna walk away.
This is my 4th time, I've got it down. This
All
is
right,
just
all right, all
gonna
right,
happen.
Holly, you're regressing a little bit here.
Sorry.
All right, if there's nothing else, then could we have a motion to adjourn at 7:51, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:51 p.m.
And a second,
Second.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Boom.